of feedback, trying to stay far away from your mic. I had a question about being paid to be featured in business lists. So for example, Inc. magazine sends out emails saying, hey, for $3,000 you can be featured in our up and coming 5,000 companies. Do you think it's worth it to do that for third-party credibility, and are you the people to even be asking this question too?
Yeah, so I mean, any third-party credibility you can get is good, but there's probably other things that you can do to get there. You know, like there are people that you can pay to, you know, have $15,000 to have this author write you a foreword in a book that you write. You know, it's the Inc. 500 thing, the you know, getting published on entrepreneur.com. You know, the first step that you probably should take is to, like with Robert, like the first thing that we did before we went out, even though we had the money to do it, the first thing that we did before we went out and started paying for promotion or anything like that is we started putting and creating content. We started putting content out and creating content. And so when you can start putting a lot of content out and people, they view you as a reliable source, an expert, then that starts elevating you organically in some of those other areas. So, you know, is it worth $2,000? Maybe, could be. Could be worth a lot more than that to you, so.
You need to know who the opinion leaders are. You need to know who the opinion leaders are for the people that you're advertising to. And you need to get on those, the opinion leaders, their lines. So if you look at Grant Cardone, he's an opinion leader for people all over the world. He's an opinion leader for business, careers, motivation, sales, prospecting, closing, real estate investing, relationships. So if your clients, or prospects I should say, the people that you want to reach, value Grant as an opinion leader, you want to make sure that you have Grant endorsing you, right?
Opinion leader, same as a key influencer?
That's right.
This question is for Mrs. Hamilton. Assuming you took on, like you walked into a new organization, like now you're the COO and then in a brand new organization, what is the first thing you're gonna come in and do? Like what is it that you're gonna look at first and start fixing and making it exactly to your standards and make it work?
I would change nothing, and I would go through and I would find out what is happening currently. And I wouldn't necessarily listen to what people were telling me, but I would look at the statistics and I would watch and I would observe. And I would see where things were working and I would see where things were not working by statistics. And then I would take a look at those particular departments and I would see where I would change something. In those places where things were going excellently, I would try to strengthen that and see why it was going excellently and try to make sure that it kept going up, not staying the same.
And even like outside of just the employee like role and administrative and like you also can do this with marketing. So when Grant comes in and we have a new idea about how to launch a product or create something, he always goes back to what worked in the past. What has been our most successful landing page? What has been the most successful product? What was the best email that we sent for open rate or click-through rate? Like, what is already proven to be effective? And then just do that again. You know, too many times people do something that's successful and it works, and then they abandon it and they go move on and they do something completely different. So you can support things that already were proven to be successful by just simply repeating that same action.
Hey, so we're looking to hire a sales rep, or not a sales rep, a sales manager. And one of the things is like, how many sales managers are to every sales rep? So do you guys have 20 sales reps? Is there one sales manager? Are there multiple sales manager? Is there a tier of how they manage?
So we've bounced back and forth a few different ways. So we did the team leader thing. We've done myself only. We've done like half and half, where we split the team up in two. And the one thing that's sort of the key decider is what's the ratio of new salespeople to veteran salespeople. So the new people come in and they're going to pound the phones and they don't really know what they're doing. So if there's a 10-to-1 ratio of new people to one vet, then I'm going to need a lot more help in that role. The thing that's the most important is to make sure that you're always bringing in new people and that you're maturing and you're constantly graduating. So we have freshmen that come in that are brand new, 0 to 90 days. My sophomores, 90 days to about 6 months. Then I've got my juniors that are post 12 months, and then people that have been here about 2 years, I call those my seniors. And so the seniors are mentoring the juniors mentor the sophomores. We use a military-like structure here, so we follow a chain of command. The new guy comes in, the first question you ask is to the guy that came in here 2 weeks ago. You don't go to Mike Bonnet, my number one guy, and say, hey, how do I send an email out? So we use the chain of command. That solves a lot of problems for us. And I think when we've had issues is when we stop recruiting and we stop developing the middle pack. And from there, it's just, making sure there's enough people in the middle to, that junior to senior ratio versus having way too many people. And they always turn over and nobody sticks long enough to actually, oversee the next wave of new people.
Is there
One issue that we had that we were running into, we constantly, this changes all the time. So it's not like, hey, this is the way it's going to be forever, and we just start putting people in, because it does change. And so, recently, we got into a situation where all the new people that were coming in, they would get somebody that was ready to see the program, and they would flip it to a veteran, a more experienced salesperson, to basically pitch and close the deal. Well, the problem is the ramp to get new people pitching their own deals was getting long because they weren't pitching their own deals. And so we sat down and we had this, we're getting sales teams growing, we're going through a spurt. How do we manage this? So we all sat down, and for probably 2.5 hours, we pinned different scenarios and talked about the pros and cons of different things. And we stopped, and just like what I said 2 minutes ago, we said, what worked? What was the thing that worked? And the thing that worked was when I was new, and I'd be on a call, and I'd say something, and Grant would be like, what'd you just say? And then he'd come over, he'd stand over me, and he'd say this, live on the call. Literally live on the call. He wouldn't take the call from me unless the guy was about to hang up, then he'd rescue me. But he would make me complete that call the right way. And so when Todd and Steve and a few of the other key people got into came on board, and we were in this small little office, it was the same thing. We'd literally go push mute on the phone and say, tell them this, and then we'd put the phone back off of mute. So we forced them into a scenario where they had to pitch the deal. They had to present. We were there as a safety net if needed, so we actually just brought that back. So now new people, if they set a demo, they're required to pitch the deal. They have a veteran that's there for backup. Our top 2 guys are currently the backups. So they get in on the call, they listen on the call. It's not Todd doing it now, it's our top 2 guys. They get half the deal for that. But now they're there to coach. It puts the top 2 guys in a position of leadership and coaching. Now they're doing what we talked about yesterday, which was if you can teach it, then you understand it, right? So we put them in a position where they become a teacher and an educator as well, so they get a little bit of a different dimension. And so far it's worked out really well. We'll, I think it's going to do well. And it's probably going to have to change, in 6 months, so.
Thanks.
As leaders, you guys constantly pour energy into your teams and others. Who pours into you guys except one another and Grant outside of your enterprise, your company?
You do. You do. Every single morning, we do our success meeting. It is the successes that we're getting with people using our products and programs that fuels us. It gets us fired up. Fired up. We wouldn't be here doing this job if it didn't. And that's the kind of people that you need. And, there's other things that we do each personally, but that is the thing that keeps us so motivated to come to work every day, to figure out something new, to tackle a new situation, a new problem, take on more, to expand, because we see what's happening when people actually use it, and it is outrageously gratifying. Do you have something to add?
There was somebody, I think it was the gentleman that sells the mattresses. On day one, he said, I took Grant's advice and I found one person and then I learned everything about that person. And so for us to go out and kind of pick all these other sources for energy. I mean, Grant's got so much content. I mean, we've barely scratched the surface in the workbook today. And if you get Cardone University and all the courses, if you go through his YouTube, if you go through all the books, like, you don't really start understanding his material until you're like 8 to 10 to 15 times deep on it. So he's got a lifetime of learning, and to start picking other people to start, grabbing energy from, a lot of the other things cause confusion. They start to undo what Grant says. You start to have doubt. The other guy says to do this and to start mirroring, but Grant said do this, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, what's the right thing? So it causes uncertainty. So I also heard that video a couple of years ago, and it's worked for me to just stick with one thing, go as deep as possible, and good thing Grant's got enough material to keep it spicy.
So when you guys are finding sales talent, maybe it's easier now, but when you guys are first scaling a team, I'm in digital marketing, so when I'm looking for salespeople, I've got TV, newspaper, billboard reps that want like 80, 90K guaranteed salary, which is what they're getting paid there. And to be honest, they're not that great at selling. They don't have your information. How do I find great people? Do I make it required that they have sales ability, or am I just looking for young, motivated people that I can train up on your material?
I mean, I would say that you have to create an environment that will take good people and make them great. Like, I think that each of us are better people in the organization that we're in than we would be elsewhere. And it's because of the demand, it's the push, it's the reinforcement daily, it's the example that leadership sets, it's the training. Like, if you want to talk about like creating a culture and an environment that it draws people in, like it's magnetic. You want to be able to, hey, this is how we run sales meetings every morning. This is how we train. When you come to work here, you're not on your own. We provide you with this and this and this and this and this, and we do this, and we do meetings every morning to cover this and that, and people come into our space and they're like, whoa, this is different. And so, like, I would just say that if you're looking to find people like that, create an environment that they can't get somewhere else. Because even if they do take that job for 80 grand and you offered them 50 in a big bonus plan or comp plan or something, when they go into that office, they're going to be like, something's different. Mm-hmm. Something's different that I felt at that other place.
And I'll add one thing to that, Jared, which is when you're interviewing someone and they're applying for a job, they're leaving their $90,000 job. They already left there. So the key question, it goes right back to qualifying questions. You've got to ask the tough questions. And one of the first questions I ask in any interview, any person I'm interviewing, is, what brings you into the market for something new? You're going to find out what they don't like at that $90,000 a year job. That's going to allow you all the information you need to sell them your job. It's a myth, baby.
Most of them will set themselves up too. Like, they'll say, well, the thing that's really killing me is I'm capped. Okay, good. Put a pay plan in place that's uncapped. Mm-hmm. Solve their problem.
Right. Welcome.
First off, I want to say all the stuff here that we've learned has been amazing. I've learned a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'm going to be able to take it home and use it towards about 80% of our sales. And the reason I say that is because most of our customers are government-related, K-12 education. So on that last 20%, our biggest opportunities are with some of the largest school districts in the United States, and they've boiled it down to simply price. It's a sealed RFP, it's a sealed bid. I'm struggling to see how we're going to be able to use this and apply these tactics, these techniques, this information when it's that scenario. When it's just a government RFP, sealed bid, there's restrictions on follow-up and contact and stuff like that. How do you propose that I can apply any of this to a situation like that?
I would find out who's being successful at winning the RFP. I bet you it's not the lowest bid.
And I would say that I know for sure that there are RFPs that get sent out where the lowest bid isn't picked. So, like, again, if you're chasing this opportunity, what we talked about right here, what can you do to be the person in that space to the degree that people are like, oh yeah, this is Shane. We need to ask him. We need to make sure he's involved in this deal. And, follow up, being creative, building your brand. Like those are all things that are important. We talked to Eric. Where's Eric at? Right here. He does cybersecurity for some of the biggest companies in the world, and some of the people like presidents and stuff. So like they come to him. So his business is referral based. So like I would just say that once you get the brand and you're out of obscurity to the degree that you're the person, like, then you're playing in a smaller field, right?
Be the expert.
Sherry.
Mike, oh, here we go. Curtis, go ahead.
This is a question for you specifically. So in our organization, like I've came from sales, I've done sales for a very long time. So it's easy for me to identify a salesman, find a salesman, train a salesman. One of the biggest lacking problems that I've had is I'm not super organized in the fact that I don't know how to do accounting. I don't know how to manage all the integral parts of communication that happened between myself and a lot of other companies. So what would you suggest to either find that person that can bring that into my organization, or educational pieces that I could bring to myself to help me identify that person that will help my business grow?
So I think just without going through a lot of schools or courses or anything else, I would look for somebody who's successful at it right now. And I would just find that person that you see that is successful. And I would ask that person, hey, I am looking for someone like you. Do you know of someone that might be interested in this opportunity? And you would let them know what that opportunity is. And I think that you're going to get pretty far that way. And if you run an ad, I would be very specific about what it is. But a lot of times, the people that you want are not the people that are looking at the one ads right now. And I'm not saying go steal someone. But for example, I was working for a company and somebody called me, a recruiter called me and said, hey, I'm looking for someone in Maryland. I said, let me put you in touch with my person in Maryland. She probably knows someone. So it's a connection. But you have to have in mind your ideal situation first. What would that person be like? What would they know how to do? And then you would find that person, get in communication with people like that. And then you would ask them, hey, I'm looking for someone. If I wanted someone like you, where would I go? Who would you ask? That would be a beginning.
If I was looking for you in Utah, do you know anybody in Utah?
I might know someone in Utah.
And then also, just to dovetail on that, you're looking for accounting or some...
Yeah. Back end.
What do you do?
We basically teach people to become accountants.
The argues. Stand up, Amanda and Andrew.
So y'all connect.
Yeah. These guys do accounting.
So good connection right
Yeah.
there. So,
Curtis, there's a whole lot of courses I could tell you about and I could tell you to do, but you're probably pretty busy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah. Who's next?
So, Jared, specifically, this question's for you. Like, I need to be you in our organization. I need that. If you were to give me two things to do, like implement right now, like with our senior partner team, and with the smaller team that I also run, like, what would you tell me? Like, I need that. I've been watching you. I've been I need that right there.
I think for me, I think what Grant would saw in me and was like, why isn't he stepping up? I accept responsibility for a lot more than I am responsible for. Things that are happening around me. When I was just selling, I accepted responsibility for all the things that were happening around me. For packages that would get misshipped, or for a salesperson who had access to the program who was calling in because he lost his password, and I took an extra 15 minutes on the call with that one person who was somebody else's client to go back over the program with him to make sure that he understood how to use it so he could win with it, or her, whatever. So I would just say, start looking for things that you can accept responsibility for that may not even be your, in your specific thing,
Yeah.
but, everything that's going on around you.
Okay.
So that would be one. And then number two, just stay close to your guy and find out what's important to him.
Okay.
And make sure that you are providing, filling in gaps for him that he may have somewhere else, you know?
Okay.
So whether it's a new division that gets created, whether it's a new program that's going to be launched, you know, I mean, I've done things that are probably outside of my wheelhouse 100 times, but it's just like it needs to get done. So you figure it out, you know?
Right.
And you leave him to do what he's great at and what he is him for. Like I know what Grant's good at, and so what I try to do is keep things off of his plate that shouldn't be there,
right,
so that he can continue to run and do his thing. And the more that he can do that thing, the better it is for the entire organization.
Yeah.
And you can create so much value by being that guy. Like I don't need to be the guy. I don't need to be up here on stage. Like I don't have something where I need to be promoted by Grant. Like I fill in the gap.
Yeah.
Right? Like I want to be his guy that he's like, hey, I need this done, and I can trust that Jared's going to get it done.
Yeah.
And so for anybody out there who is an employee, that opportunity exists with any company that you could want to go work for. You don't have to start a business in order to make a lot of money and be valuable. And so like as somebody who's an employee that makes a lot of money and has a lot of opportunity, you just have to get good at identifying like where you can serve him best, and then take responsibility for things that are happening around you that somebody else in your role may not.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, he's got a mic here. Let's go, Eric.
Yeah, one of the big themes these past couple of days was grow, grow, grow. But when you're growing, you can make a lot of mistakes. So based on your experience in growing Grant's organization, what are the top 3 mistakes or top things that can go wrong that we should be aware of and try to avoid?
Don't be afraid of mistakes.
Yeah, that would be rule number 1. You know, you can't worry about it. We hired quite a few people at one time, and that was probably one of our biggest challenges. And we had to be able to waste a little bit of time and waste a little bit of our effort and waste a little bit of, wasting stuff. As long as you know how that top line, you got to keep the top line coming in, like Grant talks about. And so if we make mistakes and we lose people or we lose time or we waste money on a certain venture or ad or product that we ordered that, didn't sell, we go, okay, we got it. But you have to be willing to keep going and just keep the top line strong.
What would you say?
Something else, Doug?
I think, back to that hiring mistake. So we just, from one week to the next, all of a sudden we doubled our sales team. And that was probably, all of a sudden there's 18 salespeople and we had 7. But I think I got more, as a manager, I got more ROI from that mistake, because in that process I learned everything that we weren't looking for. We pretty much lost 95% of the salespeople. And it gave me basically a check sheet of why every single, and they all had all these things in common. And then I had the 1 or 2 people that sticked, and then I had everybody that was doing well, and that was my criteria that I still use to this day when I'm qualifying my future sales team is, okay, we're definitely not looking for this, 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 and most people get disqualified based on the similar characteristics that they have with that one big chunk that did not work out. So I think it was 1 step back, but it's given us about 10 steps forward. So even if there is that mistake, there's always a lot of ROI in there. Yeah, so it was people that had never done well before. It was people that were, they never made 6 figures before. It was people that couldn't communicate well to C-level executives. People that were, they were locking on one thing, which was, they either did pound, 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 dials, dials, dials. And like Grant said, they were focused on activity, but not production. They were showing up early, making hundreds of calls that went nowhere. And their mentality was, I'm just going to, 10x, 10x, 10x. But they didn't really understand what 10x really meant. So they were like, hey, I've got gas in the car, but no oil. Hey, I've got the steering wheel, but no tires. And so they just, oversimplified. So.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're alluding to season 2, whatever it takes.
What I would say also to you, Eric, is that when you grow fast, it exposes the areas in your organization that you need to fix. So when we start adding a ton of people, that really wasn't a problem with the quality of the people. It was a problem with the quality of the process that we had in place to identify who those people, either if they were or were not going to be successful, and then put them into a training plan and system that we knew worked. we didn't have that. And so, like, that's one of the things that Todd and I talk about all the time. How do we get people producing faster? And so, you know, if we added a bunch of people on the web team, we'd find a bunch of new problems. If we added a bunch of people in real estate, we'd find new problems in areas that we hadn't given attention to yet. So, you know, the mistake should never be like, that should never be the focus. The focus should be continue to grow, because the mistakes can be fixed. The growth can be hard to create and then maintain and then sustain. So just focus on that and then handle the other things as they come up.
I was just going to say that too. Don't worry about the problems that you're going to have in expanding. Just don't even worry about it. Don't worry about where they're going to sit. Don't worry about the phone. Don't worry about the computer. I mean, you should see what we got going right now. I got 3 people in my office. You just can't worry about that because it will keep you small.
Hey team, Ben Brookhart here, Power Home Technologies, pht.com. Anybody needs an alarm system, I cover the whole Southeast. But this question is for all 3 of you. If you guys are all high-level achievers, superstars, if you could maybe share 1 goal or 2 goals that you have that you're working on right now with everybody, just so we can kind of see like what level your goals are and where you're thinking, I think it'd be helpful for at least me.
Number 1 is 1,000 units by 30 with Grant, the cash flow at 15%. And, you know, Grant talks about this all the time. It's like when you teach your people about wealth, not just about income. So, you know, there's people out there that are making 6 figures, but they don't really understand that investment piece. So when Grant says go broke, like we're in this position where we work really hard to go broke to fund something bigger that's going to take care of us and our family for a long time. So I think that's probably the source of that goal is, you know, owning 1,000 units with Grant. And then the second thing is to do 10 Ironmans by 30. And so there's 9 more to go. And there's 3 years left, and it's 140 miles. But what that does for me is it makes the job really easy. So we've got a big team, and, you know, it gives me a lot of energy. And, you know, Grant's got energy. If I don't have energy, the team doesn't have energy. If you're making cold calls and the team is flat, the appointments start dropping. So if I'm flat, if I'm tired, they're tired. If we're tired, there's no appointments, there's no revenue. So I value energy. I get a lot of energy from working out. And, a lot of apartments, so.
Yeah, so for me, obviously, like there's financial freedom targets and things, but I break those down into what does that mean that we have to accomplish in the business. So for us, it's 2,500 clients on Cardone University paying every month at the averages that we have now. 1,500 clients in automotive on our automotive platform doing the same thing. 5,000 licensees all around the world, you know, promoting and marketing and selling Grant and expanding the brand. It's getting the real estate education platform. I write that down every day, getting that built out so that Grant's message can reach people that are looking to get into real estate investing, but don't have the wherewithal at this point. And then, you know, doing $200 million a year in the advertising company. So if we can hit those targets, those are the things that I talk about. Those are the things I write down. That's what I'm focused on. If we can do that, if I can come in and do that, then all the other stuff that I want can happen. So, you know, want to have $1 million a month in passive income. You know, be able to go where I want, when I want, how I want, with who I want, private this, blah, blah, blah. Like all that stuff's great. I'm past that now, and now I'm focused on what I need to do tomorrow morning when I show up into the office. So it's what are the targets that we need to hit as a company for me to get what I want.
Right, and along those lines, everything that those guys just said, but, you know, of course, and I have my own personal financial goals as well and philanthropic goals, but what does it mean to take the company from where it is now, opening 2 new lines of business, expanding the current lines of business, and that means a lot more people. And my dream is to have more executives that are teammates like Jared and Todd. I need those guys, and I need a lot of them, because I need them in charge of each department that we have. And if I can have more of that kind of work ethic and that kind of problem solving, then that's what I need in order to expand. We need to take our company from 84 people to closer to 400 people to do what we just talked about. That means I need to talk to a lot more people. So all of that and above. Yeah.
Bethany Strickland, fastfitbodysculpting.com. Give us a check out because everybody needs it. But I just wanted to know, how do you guys go about daily revenue goals, weekly revenue goals, monthly revenue goals?
So every single morning, 8:20, our sales team, we train every morning. It goes from 8:20 to 8:40, and we do 6 chapters together. And Steve leads the first portion of it, and then I come in towards the end of the meeting. And every single day, I've got a graph I show the team, and I show them about 6 graphs every single day. It's year over year. I say, this is what we did last year in revenue, and we all know what the target is. So I just keep it on my phone. I Chromecast it. When I was running a different business, I would keep track of all the data, but I never shared it with my team. Like, it was something that I always knew behind the scenes, and the one thing that we've got from Grant is the graphs are everywhere. So if you go into Sherry's office, she's got a TV, and the graphs are streaming. So from her computer, she looks up, and all of a sudden there's a TV, and the graphs just fly over. With the sales team, there's graphs for every single person, from every single metric that's worth measuring, from the lead count to the dials. So I've got two on my sales team right here, and they're just streaming real time. So everybody knows what the delta is year over year for every single metric. So we cover that every morning, and I say, okay, so for last month, we did 49,000 dials. We know that this month, last year, we did 29,000 dials. And what we build a lot of value in is the gap. So this month, we're going into a month where we basically, it was a down stat for us last year. And the thing that we're really excited about is doubling what we did last month to make sure we get all the growth possible. So I say, hey, there's last year's line. That's where the dot needs to be for this year's line, and all that white space in between is growth, and we need at least $2 million in growth this month. And I cover that every single day, and the whole team knows about it. So that's what I do.
And that's one department. So that's the sales team that Todd manages, and then we have our whole e-commerce web team division. We have the real estate division, and believe me, it's hourly. We get hourly updates. Hey, Jared, Sherry, Grant, it's this many units hourly. And if Grant walks in the office, he's going to look at the big screen in the web team department and go, guys, what's happening? How many boot camps did you guys sell today? It is all the time. Hit the list. All the time.
Hi, Eduardo from Brazil. I want to know, how do you qualify sales team abroad? Like Grant mentioned about Australia, like London. Because if you're US, it's like easier for you to handle. But if you wanna, how do you qualify your team abroad, like in Australia, or if I wanna do in Brazil or South America?
We have not at this point hired salespeople to operate in those countries. We tried it early on and ran into some difficulties with it, and wanted to double down on the team that we have in the office and put a training process in place. But really, our first push into the international markets will be with our license program. And so what we wanted to do was put together a compensation plan for the licensees that was richer than anything else that was out there, so that we could actually find the people that were established. They had the established lines, they were already operating in that space, or already had a book of business, and they could basically take our content and material and then go out and deliver it, distribute it, sell it, and create a business for themselves. So we wanted to find the right people based on offering a really rich compensation plan that anybody that operated in that field would jump all over.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I'm O'Brien from South Carolina. My question for you guys is, I do door-to-door, and I don't really do any marketing and don't do any cold calling. So what would you guys think would be the first part to start at when it comes to that part of the game, like the marketing side?
Marketing door-to-door?
Yeah, I do door-to-door, but we don't do any marketing. We don't do any cold calling. I mean, we just go to a door cold.
Yeah, I mean, like finding your area online. Are you work in one area, or are you traveling around?
South Carolina, so we travel around.
In South Carolina or all over the country?
In South Carolina.
Well, at least you're dealing with a smaller area now, right? So, you can just start doing the same. Like, everybody should start creating content. Like, you should start creating some type of brand or identity, because it'll help you work out your pitch in other areas. And then finding people to connect with. Like, open your cell phone right now. Go through your cell phone. Every contact you have in there, press send when you get to them, and be like, hey, this is what we're doing now. Are you guys in the market for this, or do you know somebody who would be?
Okay.
But if you're just getting into something and you don't have a big ad budget, then you have to do it with sweat. So knock on a door or pull out your phone. If you do have money, then you need to, I'm not a marketing expert. We have those people in our office that do that. So I would just get with a guy like Robert Sislow, say, hey, if you were me in this area selling this thing, how would you do it? And then he'll put together a whole brand strategy and marketing strategy for you.
Yeah. Hey, I'm from Virginia, and I do events production and video and branding stories. Some of the customers I've worked with, some big names like Mercedes and Verizon and Marriott. But then I'm a one-person operation. I have 15, 20 subcontractors. I hired some people at some point, but then I didn't knew what work to give it to them. And they finally just lost interest and they left there. And now knowing that how important it is to hire people, so what would you suggest for that?
I missed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. What he's asking about is he hires a lot of subcontractors for work, and he struggles keeping them engaged with the business. Is that what you're asking?
Subcontractors are fine, but the subcontractors were fine. I mean, they will come on a need per basis. But then when I hired people for my office, I don't really knew what work to give it to them, because I was like so particular and specific the way I wanted to do things there, that they just lost interest and they eventually just left.
Okay, well, I mean, you have processes and procedures, and if your processes and procedures are workable and they get results, and then you train your people that you hire on those because they work, that's great. They come in and they learn those. But maybe a person who's an expert in accounting, for example, you hire them in and you've taught them how you like it done, and they say to you, hey, how about this? With their expertise, they might actually have something valuable to bring. You don't want to hire somebody that's just a robot, but they need to learn your processes and procedures first before they can recommend any changes or improvements. So I would just say in your hiring process that you make it known. Listen, I want you to come in because I need expertise in accounting. I'm just saying, for example. I'm going to teach you how I want it done. Please learn exactly how I want it done and deliver it to me exactly how I'm asking before you suggest changes. I'm open to those changes, but please do what I'm asking first. And then let that communication line flow. Then they might feel that they are more valued, because if they have zero input, they're not going to feel valued. However, it's very important that you stress the point that you want it done a certain way before it gets changed or suggestions are made.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not sure who would answer this, but I work under the supervision of a chiropractor and physical therapist, so I do traveling, private training for executives and high-level successful people that are small and big business owners. I want to be able to touch companies like Apple, AT&T, and Verizon to use wellness benefit packages from the doctor that I travel for. So would you recommend that I do this investment as a membership for the doctor, and that way we can scale his business? Or because I am high energy like Grant, just do my own thing and completely have my own business? Because I heard, Jared, you said that you want to cover the stuff that should not be on Grant's plate. And I kind of see myself doing that for this doctor, because his company aligns with my vision and the culture that I have. We have the same mentality and the same mission to help people. He works with the NFL Combine and MLB players and athletes also.
So, like, if I wanted to go start my own deal, it would be hard. It would take a long time. So partnering with Grant and being Grant's guy, like, I'm already there. Like, most people don't make the kind of money that I make working for themselves. So he's created an environment where he creates a lot of opportunity, pays people really well, pays them so good that they'd never leave, creates an environment that's so solid that people just want to be a part of it. You know, out of our whole sales team, we just took a picture this morning. There's 3 people that are from Miami. Our entire team. Everybody moved on their own dime to come work for us. So, like, the decision that you have to make is, are you ready to go all the way onto the other end and do the entrepreneur thing and do your own deal? Or are you happy enough with your situation right now and the opportunity is big enough that you can ride along in the drift and create what you want within where you're at? So, and will that guy even let you do it? So those are the questions that you need to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, then you have to ask yourself a question, like, do you want to be an entrepreneur and start your own deal and, you know, go through all of the things that most of these people in here who started their own business went through, and they all turned out well, you know, or just stay where you're at. So I can't answer that question for you, but that's the things I would consider.
So can you walk us through your morning routine, what time you get in, what time is your huddle, and you know, what time you do your the huddle, the scripting, and if you, at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, do you kind of get the mindset right again for your team again? Like, what is the whole process from morning to the afternoon?
I think it varies for all of us. For me, I'm usually in the office just before 8. We open at 9. I like to get everything together, make my list of what I need to get done that day, catch up on those things that I need to get done before we get started, and our meeting's at 9:05. For a sales team, though, it's a bit different. Give that to Tom.
So sales team, 8:20 training time. So before everybody shows up to the office, everybody's watched 6 courses from Cardone University. We're all in the same training videos. I'm watching those at about 5:30 in the morning when we're working out. Every single member on the team, they're watching their videos, they're taking their test. I'm definitely doing it myself. If I can't do it, my team's not going to do it. If somebody on my team doesn't do it and I don't do it, I'm not going to drop the hammer on them. So I think that's where a lot of managers drop the ball. Is they say, hey, I'm too busy, or I got too many things going on. And then because they're not training, they can't enforce it with their team, and then the whole system just withers away. So I'm watching it, and then we go in. Everybody shows up between 8 and 8:15. Steve takes over, and from 8:20 to 8:40, we do the same meeting every single day. Steve does 15 minutes of debrief on what we learned, how it applies to the business, and what is Grant saying in there that we're missing. So Grant said this, and what does that really mean? And we're getting perspective from different salespeople, and so we do that training. So not only we're just consuming content, but we're also doing like a boot camp where we're actually making sure that we're going to apply it that day. And we've maintained that same routine every single day since 2014. And so it's a really easy task to do, but it works really well if you do it consistently over a long period of time. I think that's where most people drop the ball. So from there, we slide into our 20 minutes role play, which you saw Steve and Dave do yesterday. That happens every single morning. And so I got probably 10 questions about that yesterday. How do you do the role play? How does this work? What do they do? And it's like, it's almost like they can't wrap their minds around it, but it's really that simple. You literally sit down, you go face to face, and they say, okay, it's the opening line. It's that first point of contact. Here's why I'm calling, and their resistance. And we role play that every single morning for 20 minutes. That ends, and it segues into our office meeting for 9:05. That meeting ends at 9:20, and from 9:20 to 6 p.m., the phones are going off. We've got appointments that are showing up. My job as the executive is to make sure I know what demos are happening for the day so I can listen in. As backup for that third-party touch, that negotiating piece. Every single hour, we've got a horseshoe. I walk around every hour with the amount of activity that we're demanding. If I don't walk around every hour and reset the team, they start to daze off. So they become like, they just wander and they're making mindless calls. So I literally have an alarm on my phone. It goes up every hour, and I get up and I just walk around. And when I'm walking around, I'm going to see a lot of things. I'm going to see people on phones, stalking customers, doing the research. There's going to be a rep that's on Facebook, wandering around. I'm going to pop up. I'm going to sneak up on him, and I'm just going to stare at his phone while he's on Instagram. And all of a sudden, I'm right in his face, and they're like, oh, shit. But that happens every single hour, and every hour you need to reset your people. So that tour pretty much happens until the day's over, and from that point, we're making sure we wrap up statistics, we debrief, we send out an end-of-day report that goes from my sales team to my executive team, so there's full transparency, and then we share those numbers every single day, and we acknowledge the wins, and there's full transparency if we did enough dials, set enough appointments, closed enough deals, and if we're doing great, everybody knows about it. If we're not doing good, everybody knows about it.
And I'll say that when you have a team that's making phone calls, pounding all day long, like that's all the stuff that, the structure and, how we track deals and all that stuff, but the walk around. But then there's the things that create engagement and they get people's like spirits back up. And so like we've got like Corey Gill with you wanna do the thing?
Go ahead, Corey.
We got 2 claps in the Ric Flair.
So, like randomly throughout the day, it'll be that. Randomly throughout the day, there'll be like somebody will start the slow clap. And then next thing you know, and then. So there's that. There's 5 o'clock shots. So not shots.
Come on.
5 o'clock. Everybody gets a shot. They crumble up a ball of paper. We put a trash can down at the end. 5 o'clock. Everybody. Yeah. Space Jam. The Space Jam song comes on, and everybody takes a shot. At the basket, so you can make the basket. If we're, some cigars will be floating around. Throw some and stuff like that. So like we do things like that to keep it fun. Like, I don't want you guys to hear everything that we're talking about and think, man, this is, do you guys even like have fun doing this? We have a lot of fun. Like we have a lot of fun and we'll do that 5 o'clock shots thing. It'll take 7 or 8 minutes for everybody to get up, stand up towards the end of the day for a last push so people don't check out the last 60 minutes waiting for 6 o'clock to come. So we get them back engaged. And then you go back there and people there till 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock, 7:30. I mean, so it's not just about the structure. It's also about what can you do to take a quick break, like minutes, and then get right back into it.
One more.
So we have 11 people on our team that are ready to commit to change. And when we go back, we have 3 people that weren't here with us that are all key stakeholders in our company. How can we come in that creates that effective commit to change in a positive way, but doesn't overblow them to where they're like, no, we can't do this. We can't mandate that. We can't spend that. How do we get effective buy-in? And I would love for your advice from all of you on how we can do this correctly.
Yeah, I would just tell you that number one, the executives that you're going back to wouldn't have spent the money that they spent for you to come here if they weren't committed to like you guys getting better at what you do, right? Number one. Number two, it's their company, right? So, like you got to go back and you got to find a way to say, hey, like these are the things that we learned here and this is how we're going to do them. Like, can you guys get on board with that? That's one of the disadvantages of an executive not coming. So for everybody that came, as an executive of a company and you didn't bring your team, that is one of the disadvantages that you have going back, is you've gotten all this great information, and if you've ever played the telephone game, by the time it gets 3 or 4 people down the line, the message changes. And so, like, that's why we encourage you guys, we implore you, bring your team to this deal. Because this one event, if you can get everybody on the same page, will create so much horsepower in your organization that you will have, like, not just growth, you will have incremental growth. Because you will, as a unit, that's why we're so powerful, because as a unit, we are all pushing together. And 80 people, plus 85 people that are engaged, motivated, inspired, skilled, passionate, purpose-driven, like, when we're pushing, that's a really, really tough thing to stop.
Yeah,
so
it is unstoppable. And if I could add to that, Jay, you have a really powerful tool in your hands right now, which is your workbook. And if you can get a meeting and go back there and talk about, I would validate your executives for sending you here by sharing your wins from the workshop. And I would use your workbook to do that. And I would talk about the things that you realized that you can now do better, because they're going to go, oh oh my gosh, thank you, Grant Cardone, for helping this person have this realization. But in doing that, they will have their own as well. And I think that if you can share it as a win and validate them as a thank you for sending you, and talk about how fired up you are and share it through the technology that you've been given, it will rub off.
Probably not a great idea to go back and go, you got to call every deal that I talk to.
Do not make them wrong. Do not make them wrong.
Yeah. Good.
One more?
That's smart.
I think G said. I think G said.
Okay. We got two more.
I have a better answer for you than anyone that they gave you. Go back and shine. Outproduce everybody who wasn't here, and your boss cannot ignore you.
That's good.
There you go.
We got 2 claps and a Ric Flair. A little rusty. One more time. 2 claps and a Ric Flair. That's better.
Oh, that's awesome. One thing I wanted to add, so I've got my sales team here, that guy, Dave Dimmick, that was talking about wanting to be you. He made 2.5 times more money before he came on to work with me at a company that didn't exist and we hadn't launched or sold anything. We stuffed portfolios in a Starbucks our first day. And I was just thinking about, it almost made me want to cry, really, that he was asking you that question, you know? Like one of my people's asking you that question. I'll tell you this, one thing that has people like that work for me is that I bring them to things like this. Because I have more interest in them making money. Like the thing I'm trying to crack is, how do I make these guys $1 million? I got to figure that out. That's my #1 problem right now. How in my industry, with our structure, that's why I'm paying you guys, is to figure out how to make them $1 million. So
awesome.
That's, I think, the answer to how do you hire good people. If you came here by yourself, that's not it.
Yeah, that's right.
Totally.
It's just not, because they're going to see you go do all the cool stuff, pictures with Grant, blah, 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 but where's mine?
Yeah.
Where's mine? And then the questions I had was, how would you suggest we do what you said about like all the cool chants you're doing? I'm like, maybe I'll pull my people in and we'll do phone calls instead of knocking doors, because this is so fun and I love that environment, but they're out in the field. You do it on Marco Polo? How would you suggest we create that kind of culture where we've got that every hour? Because I know you go knock on doors and you get that door slammed in your face enough times, but there's not you or me to walk around and go, come on, let's go, you got this, 5 o'clock shots, things like that.
Yeah, I think, in a door-to-door environment, there's got to be some conference call, or there's got to be something where you get everybody together, and that togetherness is something that, it's really special. So we have the luxury of being together every single day. And if you're out in the field, maybe you guys meet up at a McDonald's in the morning and you do a remote parking lot meeting at every McDonald's before you guys go hit the turf. Or you pick the Taco Bell, and you just got to do something every day, whether it's physically together or if it's you guys invest in a go-to meeting, and you do a 15-minute meeting every single morning, and people are showing their FaceTime. Like I know a lot of door-to-door companies, and they do Zoom, and everybody zooms in for the accountability. You got to show your face so you're paying attention. And you as the leader, you're acknowledging the wins. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Mike. Mike knocked the most doors yesterday, and I know that because he's using the CRM tool. Good job, Mike, for using the tool, and good job for getting the most knocks. The second thing is I want to acknowledge Steve for actually getting the most results. So you got the activity award, you got the results award. Great job for you. You didn't knock as many doors, but you did 5 more appointments than the other guy. So good for you. The next thing is, I want to acknowledge so-and-so. So whatever you want to get more of, you just acknowledge it. And if you can glorify these people through a 15-minute go-to meeting, even though they're all scattered around, and given that structure that we've been able to create using technology, I think that there's enough tools out there to do that. And as far as, all these cool things that we do, everybody has their own personality. So we hire great people, and organically, like Corey just one day did it, and then it stuck. Like I didn't tell Corey he needed to do that.
Yeah.
He's just a cool dude. We have a cool team. We've got sharp people, and we attract really cool people, and they bring their own thing. So Michael does some crazy stuff that I never told him to do, but we let him do it because he's throwing points up on the board. Bishop's one of our newer guys too, and everybody has their own thing, but we have a really, really unique team, and everybody brings something different. So Jared K is he's crazy, but I'm not telling him. This guy knows every word track that Grant Cardone has. He's a walking. If you want to test him on some closes, just go. You say, hey, spouse stall 3, go, and he's just good. We got to mic him up. Okay. So like he takes every audio file and he memorizes it, he scripts it out, and then the next morning he just walks in riffing all these different word tracks. And we get that. That's the benefit of training every day, is his confidence comes out.
Talk to your wife. If your wife is anything like my wife, I mean, I talk about everything. See, I'm rusty, Tom.
It's been 2 days. It takes less than a day to get rusty.
Hey, I need to talk to my wife. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you definitely should, Grant. You should talk to your wife. But if your wife's anything like my wife, I mean, we talk about everything. She knows you're here, right? She knows you're looking at this. I mean, let's do it. Let's get it done.
No, you know what I know about my wife? She never, ever, ever. She never, ever, ever tells me no when it's something that'll be good.
Katie, tell the people next door to handle the music.
Yeah.
Okay, it's unacceptable. Okay, the other thing is unacceptable is these little freaking diplomat pads. How many of you looked at these pads and said, dude, what a punk pad this is, huh? Huh? Can you believe this? Like, well, why would you do this? Why would the diplomat do this? Like, how many of you had this idea, like, what is it? See, and somebody needs to tell the diplomat, hey, dude, it's not cool. Like, I will never come back to this hotel if you don't give me a good pad. Who wants to write on that? So this is how you leave bad impressions with people. Somebody being cheap, somebody's managing the expenses of this company rather than growing the revenue of the company. It's just dumb, okay? All right, hey, give these guys a big hand, all right? This is my team right here. Teamwork, great job, guys, great job. Look at them, they love you guys. Come on.